hello everybody, it's Randy Ray, the Literate Texan, back with another Tag Tuesday video that I'm posting a day late on Wednesday. This one is called the Star Trek The Next Generation tag, which is related to Book Trek 2023. And I first saw this on Steve Donahue's channel, and I was tagged by the great J. Scott Phillips to do this tag. So it's a series of questions based on Star Trek The Next Generation characters. And it's kind of a fun thing to do. It's sort of tangentially related to or celebrating Book Trek, which is a booktube event where we read Star Trek books that was created by Vin at Revenant Reads. And he's got a whole mess of co-hosts. I am not a co-host, just an enthusiastic participant, because I love Star Trek novels too. So, I've got a list of questions here, and I'm going to read them, then I'm going to answer them. Number one, The Next Generation premiered in 1987, and for 7 years, regularly racked up higher ratings than any other Star Trek franchise. What has been your relationship with the show? So, growing up in the 70s and 80s, I watched reruns of the original series on television every chance I got. And I was a big fan of Captain Kirk, of course. You know, he's my favorite character. And, you know, of course, in 1982, I was obsessed with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. If you've seen Steve Donahue's video, he talks a little bit about his obsession with Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, which I also love. Unlike most people, I'm not a fan of Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. It's all right, but, you know, I failed to see why it was so popular. But I did watch The Next Generation when it premiered in 1987, and I didn't like it. I didn't like anything about it. I thought the uniforms were terrible, didn't care for the music, wasn't crazy about the plot. I gave it maybe 4 episodes, and then I just gave up on it. I didn't want to watch it anymore. You know, I had a part-time job. I was reading books. You know, I was regularly engaged in role-playing games as a teenager in the 1980s. And, you know, by 1987, I had money and a car and was chasing girls, too. So, you know, I didn't have time for a mediocre, at best, Star Trek show. Now, after the first 2 seasons, the quality of the show improved noticeably. And by the time I was in college, I had a bunch of friends in the Residence Hall Association who were, you know, big fans of Star Trek The Next Generation. But of course, I stayed pretty busy in college too, and I didn't watch a lot of television then, but I did catch the occasional episode. And by the time, you know, I got out of college in 1992, 1993, I really started catching up on The Next Generation. And, you know, starting with season 3, it turned into a really good show. And by the time it had fully matured in seasons, you know, 5, 6, and 7, it was really terrific. And I really grew to like the characters a lot. So my relationship with the show was ambivalent at first, but I became a fan later. That about sums it up. Number 2, the Enterprise D. Picard's Enterprise continues the epic adventures of James T. Kirk's Enterprise. Did you read Next Generation books as they were coming out? Have you read many of them since? I did not read Next Generation books as they were coming out. I did read original series books as they were coming out, but I didn't read all of them, you know, just here and there. Have you read many of them since? You know, the Shatnerverse novels feature the crew of The Next Generation, and I've read all of those, and I believe there was one novel called Federation by the Garfield Reeves Stevenses, which featured both the Next Generation crew and the original crew. But in terms of reading novels strictly about the Next Generation, I've never read one. I've only read the ones that were crossovers with the original crew. And for that matter, I haven't read any DS9 or Enterprise novels either. The only Star Trek books that I've read are those based on the original series. For better or for worse, that's just how it's turned out. Number 3, the crew. The Stellar Bridge crew of the Enterprise D is far less human than that of the classic Enterprise. Do you deviate from the textbook human norm? In what ways are you some sort of circus sideshow freak. Well, okay, so I guess it was about 2 years ago, early one morning, the humerus in my left arm just broke. I didn't break my arm. It just snapped one morning. It was really crazy. I was buck naked, and my arm just fell to my side. I thought I'd snapped a tendon or something like that, but it was incredibly painful. But I was buck naked. I called 911, forgetting that the ambulance is right around the corner. I just lived 2 or 3 blocks from the fire station. And I could hear the sirens as they were coming here. I'm like, this one's for me, man. So anyway, I barely had time to pull on a pair of boxer shorts and kind of halfway put on a t-shirt. Obviously, I couldn't put my left arm in there. But to repair the left arm, I have a steel rod or titanium rod or something like that. I don't know what metal they use for this stuff. But I've got a bionic arm, so to speak. And I've got some really cool scars from the surgery. My daughter told me, she said, Dad, that's really metal. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not up on all of the young people's vernacular these days. But I think when my daughter compliments me and tells me that I look metal, that's a cool thing. I also have some mesh. I've had a couple of hernia repairs. So in that respect, you know, I guess I'm sort of a bionic man at this point. But the main way that I deviate from the textbook human norm is you'll notice that most of my videos only go from about here up. I actually weigh over 600 pounds. Now, I'm very tall. I'm 6'3", but nobody's tall enough to carry 600 pounds and look really good at it. At one point, I'd lost over 150 pounds, and I was doing really, really well. But then, you know, I learned about the cancer, which is what caused the arm to break, actually. And, you know, that put me into a tailspin of depression, which I'm only now coming out of. And the treatment includes steroids, and they're really strong steroids. I'm on dexamethasone. And it's got the word meth right there in the name of it. But my steroids make me insanely hungry. And also about 4 or 5 days out of the week, I have no energy at all. So it was real easy to gain a lot of weight back. You know, I was one of those physique transformation guys. I've got an Instagram account over there where you can see before and after pictures of me holding up pants and stuff like that. But I've recently started losing weight again in an attempt to get healthy. And so, you know, yeah, that's the most significant way that I deviate from the textbook human norm, I think anyway. And I've got a little bit of a squint in this eye here too. So I don't know that that's circus sideshow freak qualifying stuff. I mean, it'd be a pretty poor circus that was going to put me in there just because I have one eye that's a little squinty. And I'm told it's not even noticeable. So y'all have to forgive me. I don't normally drink in front of people unless I can offer them a sip. But my meds also make my mouth really dry. So I just have to do this. Or I couldn't record the video at all. Number 4. Captain Jean-Luc Picard is a starship captain, but could easily have followed a different path and been a professor, an archeologist, etc. Do you have an idea of what your dream job would be? I used to think that my dream job would be a high school teacher, but I guess I wasn't very good at it. I don't know. Maybe I was good at it. I didn't get along with anybody very well. Of course, that was 30 years ago. I was 30 years younger and lacking in certain types of maturity at age 23 that might have, you know, improved my performance as a student teacher anyway. Anyway, I went into the travel industry and it was great. I pretty much feel like my job that I have now is my dream job. You know, I own a search engine optimization company. I work for myself. My office is here in my house. I'm really, really good at what I do for a living. I do miss some of the camaraderie of being in the office with other people, but with the internet being what it is, you know, I have Zoom calls with people, and I have friends on YouTube now that I talk to all the time. And, you know, I was commenting to my roommate today about just how special this whole YouTube thing is because, you know, I've participated on other social media platforms before and I've gotten to know people there, but I've never felt like I'd gotten to know complete strangers that I'd never met in person before, as well as some of the friends that I've made on YouTube. So it's been a real interesting platform for me. Oh, also, this is kind of a weird deviation, but I was participating in a search engine optimization discussion the other day on Facebook. And one of the people there said that YouTube is not a social media channel. Man, maybe not the way he's doing it, but I don't know how you disqualify YouTube as a social media channel. I thought that was crazy. I did correct him. Number 5, Will Riker in his off hours is unapologetically hedonistic. How much of a pleasure seeker are you? Have you ever done anything in Vegas that very much needed to stay in Vegas? Okay, so on a scale from 1 to 10, in terms of how much of a pleasure seeker I am, I'm probably a 9. Oh yeah, big time. I'm a hedonist. I relate to Captain Riker a lot. In fact, one of my proudest moments, one of my very proudest moments, Facebook has this feature where if someone posts a picture that looks like you closely enough, it'll say, hey, somebody just posted a picture of you. Is this you? Do you want to tag yourself? And a friend of mine had posted a meme about Will Riker, and Facebook contacted me, with their little notification asking if it was me. So apparently, on some level, I look like Will Riker. Hey man, I'll take it. Have you ever done anything in Vegas that very much needed to stay in Vegas? I saw a comedian. I can't remember which one it was. I think it might have been John Mulaney, but he was talking about, this whole slogan, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and how really what that means is you can get a hooker in Vegas and, it'll stay there hopefully. But it doesn't really mean that whatever else happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. You murder somebody in Vegas, they're still going to hunt you down for murder, That's not my idea of hedonistic pleasure anyway. But I've been to Vegas many times. I love Vegas and would like to go back one of these days too. So, number 6, Deanna Troy isn't a full telepath. How empathetic are you? I would say on a scale from 1 to 10, I'm probably close to 7 or 8 now. Probably a lot lower than that before I quit drinking and got sober. I always thought Troy's character was really great. They'd meet some alien and he'd be screaming at him through that view screen. And she'd lean over there to Captain Picard. I sense that he's very angry. I always thought that was funny. Number 7, Dr. Crusher is the first Enterprise officer to serve with her own child. Have you ever worked with one of your children, or could you, considering what pathetic losers they are? I'm sure that I could work with my children. My children are wonderful. None of my children are pathetic losers, and they're just delightful. That being said, I used to take my daughters to work all the time when I owned a bookstore, but they didn't really work there. They just hung out there. So, but that was a lot of fun. Number 8, Data is a super sophisticated android, and yet he voluntarily keeps a cat. Do you also have this serious personal failing? No, I'm allergic to cats. Don't particularly like cats. I'm a dog person. Number 9, the Enterprise D's bridge crew gradually develops an excellent chemistry. Have you ever had that kind of chemistry in a work environment? Yes, multiple times. I managed the group sales department at hotels.com. I felt like we had similar chemistry to that. I may have misjudged that situation a couple of times, but also I still have friends that I worked with at Long John Silver's when I was a teenager and was willing to work for minimum wage. And we had a really great relationship and had a little reunion not too long ago. Not to work at Long John Silver's, but just to catch up. So those are my answers to the Book Trek Tag Tuesday Star Trek The Next Generation tag. And thank you for watching. I will see you soon with more videos. Please stay hydrated.